All right, welcome in you guys to another One Piece spoiler discussion video. My name is Sai, and today we are going to be talking about two characters in particular. Those two characters are Rob Lucci and Kizaru. Because if you read the spoilers, then you know that they're still standing, sort of. One of them's laying down, but the other one is standing. And I thought that was really interesting, and we're just here to talk about them. So yeah, first up, Lucci. Rob Lucci and Zoro is over, but Rob Lucci is still standing. This man has not lost consciousness, and here's the thing. I do not believe that he is going to go back after Zoro. There's no shot, right? Like, Zoro has probably already left the scene by now. Jinbei is a really responsible character, so I'm sure the minute he saw Zoro take him down, Jinbei was like, hey, Zoro, you know, we gotta go, right? Jinbei came here to pick up Zoro and to make sure that he didn't get lost. It would make no sense to me if they were still nearby when Rob Lucci came around, or, you know, once he started moving around again. So yeah, in that regard, I think that the fight is over. And now, as far as Lucci still standing after Zoro's spotted leopard hunt from last chapter, I don't think that's a bad thing for Zoro. We do have to keep in mind that Lucci is an awakened Zoan. These guys heal really quickly, right? We saw Gear 5th Luffy knock Lucci out one chapter. He was like, oh no, I'm losing consciousness, right? A named Luffy attack, I'm going out of it. And then in the very next chapter, he just put a band-aid on his cheek and then he was fine. Like, that is just how awakened Zoans are. And even Luffy is the same. During Luffy's fight against Kizaru, Luffy ran out of energy. And then he ate a hamburger or two, and then boom, he's back up and ready to fight again. That's just how these Zoans are. So Lucci still standing in this chapter, in my opinion, does not make Zoro look bad. And this is coming from a massive Rob Lucci fan, but I didn't even expect him to still be standing in this chapter. When I read that spoiler report, my eyes were wide open. As wide as an Asian's eyes could get, it was there. What I'm most interested in now, though, is just what will Rob Lucci do now that his fight is over, you know, because I really do not believe that he's going to want to fight Zoro again. You know, Zoro, in my opinion, is the victor of that fight. You know, Lucci cannot go down to the Fabrio face and fight Luffy. That would just be absolutely ridiculous. We already have multiple members of the Gorosei trying to do that. There are giants down there. Adding Lucci to that battlefield would just be way too chaotic, in my opinion. So as far as what Lucci could do here on the Fabrio face, I feel like that is where he can be actually useful. Because we do have to remember that there are key characters here on the Labo phase that matter to Lucci. The first character on that list would be York, right? Because the Straw Hats, I doubt they're going to bring York with them on the giant ship. I doubt they're going to escape with York. Marcus Mars, who is the one who's flying through the barrier as we speak, he's really just looking for the broadcast signal. Nobody's really paying attention to York anymore. But we do have to remember that Lucci originally came here to assassinate all the Vegapunks except for her. So I do think Robert could walk away from this island with a minor W and secure York for the Gorosei so that she can make them weapons at a later date. I think that is very plausible. Maybe I'm wrong, though. Maybe the Straw Hats are taking York with them onto the ship, but we haven't seen York in a hot minute. We saw York in the control room, and then Nami, Usopp, and Chopper and all of them, they left the control room, and then it's like, okay, what's going on with York, right? Like, we don't exactly know where she's at. We do not have an Onigashima map in front of us, so I'm just taking a guess and saying that she's being left alone right now. And another character who was also last seen in the control room would be his homeboy Kaku. When I look at Rob Lucci and Kaku, I really do just see the world government equivalent of Luffy and Zoro. Like, you have the captain and then you have their swordsman right hand. That is just them to a T. So Lucci saving Kaku wouldn't be too crazy in my opinion, especially when you take into consideration that they grew up together, they trained for CP9 together, they escaped Eni's lobby together, Kaku took care of Lucci while he was unconscious. Like, really, they're just knock him at the end of the day. So yeah, I do think that Lucci would want to save his homeboy here, because last we saw Kaku was trapped in a sea prism bubble. I don't know how Lucci's going to destroy it. I don't know if you can break it easily from the outside. But hey, I feel like if Lucci can do it, he will do it. These are like the easiest W's we could give him. And then going beyond that, what I think he could also have an effect on revolves around the remaining Cypherpole agents here on this island. Because we do have to keep in mind that we do have CP3, 5, and 7, I believe, on the Labo phase along with Lucci and Kaku. So I do think there's a chance that Lucci could go to them and assassinate them. I don't think Lucci's going to save them by any means. Because we do have to remember that Lucci does not like insubordination whatsoever, right? In Lucci's backstory, he went to a kingdom and killed all 500 of their soldiers because they were a detriment to the king. The Cypherpole agents on this island besides, you know, Lucci and his gang, have all betrayed the world government. They assisted Luffy. So I really don't think Lucci would let them off the hook, because for me at least, it just doesn't seem like it would be in his character. Unless he changed, right? Maybe his time with Luffy changed him, but I don't think that's the case. I think he's still the murderous psychopath that we all know and love. So yeah, there's a chance that the Cypherpole agents that have been left behind here in the Labo phase will just get done in by Lucci and Kaku. But with the Cypherpole agents in the same room are the Seraphim, who are also trapped in sea prison bubbles as well. Nobody's really showing them any love whatsoever. You know, Nami hasn't talked about them. Lilith and Atlas haven't talked about them. We haven't exactly been, you know, bringing them over to the Thousand Sunny or the giant ship. So I do wonder what's going to happen to them. And if Rob Lucci goes there and he's the only one nearby, I feel like maybe he gets them under his control again. Maybe he gifts them to the Gorosei. That could be a solid possibility. Like, it would be a little bit strange if the Gorosei and the world government didn't have the Seraphim by the end of Egghead, right? Because literally before Egghead Island happened, we learned that they got rid of the Shishibukai system because they have the Seraphim. So imagine we go to Egghead and they lose the Seraphim. It's like, okay, come on. What are we doing here, guys? So yeah, I do think that they will get the Seraphim under their control. And of course, Oda did add in the stipulation with Bonnie that Bonnie can only control models that look like her father. So I do think that Oda purposefully left that door open for the Gorosei to be the masterminds behind the Seraphim for the time being, so that they at least have, you know, something on their side in the final war. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Rob Lucci and what he could do next. One thing that I think could be a little bit interesting to see in the future would be how he reacts to a Leloucia type event. Because we do know that coming into Egghead Island, he did mention Leloucia and he was kind of curious about it. So I do wonder if that will pay off somehow in the future. So now on to Kizaru, because we do see him in this chapter apparently, and it looks like he wants to sit out for the rest of this island. You know, the Marines are trying to comfort him saying, hey, Kizaru, you know, here's some band-aids. Are you okay? What's up? And then Kizaru says, hey, just let me rest in peace. So what does this mean about Kizaru? Does this make him look bad? Personally, I don't think so, right? I mean, Luffy's over here stomping on the Gorosei. I feel like Kizaru sitting out for the rest of the fight just makes a lot of sense in my opinion, right? While yes, Kizaru is an absolute powerhouse, I don't really see how he would change the situation all too much unless he has like some crazy awakening that could beat Luffy, which I don't think he does. I think he can awaken, but even if he does, you know, Luffy is just levels and levels above everyone else on this island right now. So yeah, I can understand why Kizaru would want to sit out. And not to mention, but even just taking a step back and thinking about Kizaru from an emotional perspective, he's not doing too well on that front either. Kizaru literally killed his best friend a couple chapters ago. Yes, Saint Saturn did pierce him through the chest, so he was going to die anyways, but Kizaru decided to land the finishing blow. Any 0.001% chance of Vegapunk surviving got nixed the minute Kizaru beamed him through the chest. It's like, yo, like, Kizaru's definitely not doing well, and then to add insult to injury, or at least to rub salt in the wound, Vegapunk's message is playing post-mortem, right? Like, imagine killing your friend, and then now you're just laying down and you hear his voice from the Denden Mushi playing right beside you. Like, Kizaru is having a pretty rough time. You know, he lost his fights, he lost his friend, and now he has to listen to his friend's final words, which for me was a pretty crazy development because I never thought that Kizaru would actually go through with it. You know, coming into this island, I was like, yo, like, Kizaru and Vegapunk, they've known each other for like 20 to 30 years at this point. Like, they're really good friends. Kizaru apparently hanged out here on Egghead Island a lot. He let Vegapunk replicate his light beams. Like, these guys are homeboys. I didn't think that Kizaru had it in him to actually put Vegapunk down, because throughout this island, we got instances where Kizaru has said verbatim that he doesn't want to kill Vegapunk. Whenever he breaks something on the island, you know, Kizaru kind of like winces in pain. He's like, ah, there goes the Vegaforce 1. Dang, there goes Sentomaru. There goes Bonnie, right? Like, everything Kizaru holds near and dear to his heart outside of work has been dropping like flies. So yeah, I don't blame him for taking the day off now. You know, he did his job. I think he performed pretty well in that manner. You know, as far as defeating Yonko Straw Hat Luffy, he hasn't exceeded there, but technically that was never his mission. He just wanted to kill Vegapunk, and now that he's done that, I think he deserves a little vacation. So yeah, him resting up, I don't think is that bad. What I'm really curious in now is just what he's going to do after this island, right? Like, is he going to go back to work? Is he going to work for the Gorosei? Like, is he going to get a promotion for his job well done here? Like, I really don't know. So I'm sure you guys know by now that Egghead Island is just one big parallel to Ohara, right? Because at Ohara, we had Vice Admiral Kuzan killing his best friend, Vice Admiral Saul, after so many years. Just like how Kizaru on this island killed Vegapunk, a friend that he's had for so many years as well. What's interesting is that as time goes on, Aokiji starts developing a soft spot for Nico Robin, and by extension, the Straw Hats. So now that this has all happened, I wonder if the same is going to happen for Kizaru. Will Kizaru start developing a soft side for Bonnie and the Straw Hats as well? I have no clue. Honestly, I'm not really too sure. I mean, the guy's motif is literally just unclear justice. But I do think that Kizaru will inherit some of Vegapunk's will. But then again, I'm not too sure what Vegapunk's will even is. Maybe it's just to protect Bonnie, maybe it's to reveal world government secrets, or maybe it's just his dream of connecting everyone to the internet. I have no clue. But yeah, I do think that Kizaru and Lucci are fascinating characters, not because they're going to get back up and, fight everybody, they're going to run the gauntlet and beat Luffy and Zoro. No. I think Kizaru and Lucci are interesting characters because of how they develop and what they're going to do next. I know some people will say that the only reason I'm making this video is because they're some of my favorite characters. And that's true. No, I love Lucci. I love Kizaru. I think they're fantastic people. And here's the thing too. As a massive fan of villains, we have to understand that Lucci and Kizaru were never meant to win, right? You look at the matchups. Lucci, Luffy, Lucci, Zoro. He's not winning those, right? Put Lucci against Usopp and then we could talk, right? As far as Kizaru goes, the only way he would stand a chance against Luffy would be if he was awakened. He has not shown us that potential yet. I still think it's in the cards, but even then, Luffy is manhandling everyone here. When it comes to villains, they were never meant to win. Luffy and his crew will always win at the end. Why I think villains are fascinating is because I want to see how they try to overcome that adversity, right? How do they try to fight Luffy? How do they try to fight Zoro? And even then, what do they do in the future? Because Oda has shown time and time again that sometimes bad guys who we once fought do become our allies at the end of the day. And of course, the main villain isn't Kizaru or even Lucci or even Akainu. The main villain of the story is Imu and the Gorosei. It's the world government. Well, I guess technically Lucci is a part of the world government, but you know what I mean, right? Like, I want to see how these guys develop. I think that's what's really interesting about villains. And I think Oda has done a really good job throughout the series when it comes to portraying villains and making them somewhat relatable. Because let's be real, even if you don't like Kizaru, you have to sympathize with them to some extent. Like, hey, he really didn't want to do this. He really didn't want to kill his best friend, but I guess the paycheck, the 401k was just too hard, right? I don't know how old Kizaru is, but he's almost 59 years old. He's about to cash in. Maybe he just wants to secure his retirement. There's a lot of things with these characters that I think makes them really complex and fun, even if they do lose their fights against the Straw Hats. It's like Kaido and Doflamingo, for example, right? Like, we know that they were eventually going to lose, but while they were here, they were a lot of fun. And I think after we leave Egghead Island, people will look back at the Lucci moments and laugh a little bit. We'll look back at the Kizaru moments and feel bad for him to some extent. But yeah, I would love to hear what you guys have to say about Lucci and Kizaru. What do you think they're going to do next? How do you feel about them so far here on Egghead? I would love to hear any and all opinions down below. In the next video, we'll probably talk more about the Straw Hats. Usually in these spoiler discussion videos, I do try to keep them contained to just one or two topics. So on this topic, I've just talked about the world government and Kizaru. And then in the next one, we'll talk about the Straw Hats because I think that's about to get really interesting too, with some of the Straw Hats heading to the Giant's ship. But with that being said, hey, catch you guys later. Sai, signing out.